Okay, hi everyone. So we just had Adobe Max, and on November 4th, they dropped a lot of new features for a lot of the audio video applications. I'm going to focus on what came out in Premiere. The big new excitement is about auto reframe. I will step into Premiere and show you this. It essentially makes it so that automatically you can create exports of your sequence at 9 by 16 or square and output to social media without having to do any manual tracking. It's going to track the content so that it'll key in on whatever is the center focus of the frame, and even if that's moving through the frame, as you'll see when I demonstrate it, it just does a great job of following that and giving you what you need to export out video for Instagram or whatever social media site you're using. So this was a really big deal for me. I want to make a note here that you might not find when you look up the new features on Premiere, that at Adobe Max I got to play around with this feature using the RTX, the NVIDIA graphics card. And I will say it was amazing, because as soon as I applied auto reframe, I literally blinked and looked again, and the analysis had been done and the footage had been tracked. So depending on your system, you'll have different experience in terms of the speed at which this auto tracking happens. But on a souped up system or with a great graphics card like that NVIDIA card, you definitely are going to see that this happens almost instantaneously. Some of the other new features, we've got some time remapping. This might seem like a small thing, but you know, when you have really long clips that you want to speed up, you can now speed things up to 20,000%. So that's kind of fun and exciting and a quick one. And then you've got this, may not seem exciting, but I'll tell you, this is the feature I'm actually most happy with. This is the system compatibility report. And what happens now when you launch Premiere, when you start Premiere, or when you go to the help menu for system compatibility report, is you'll get a warning if you have outdated drivers or you have any potential bugs in the drivers. It'll system check for you. This will keep the little system warning up at the top of your interface when you're working in Premiere until you deal with it. And I want to make a note here, because everyone's like, why are you so excited about this? I said, because everyone, me included, tends to have the habit of going, oh yeah, there's something wrong, just return, ignore, let's just keep working. But one of the things that the engineers for Premiere, specifically at Adobe, discovered is that a high number of crashes are related to funky drivers or outdated drivers, or just a bug that if you go fix what it tells you to address, you will potentially avoid crashes. And as you guys know, the most important thing, I mean, the time that we spend rebooting after a crash and getting everything back into place is best avoided. So it will tell you if there's a problem with your driver. Now, it won't tell you if there's a problem with the driver between the monitor and the chair, but it will tell you if there's a problem with your system driver. Was really important for me to make a point that you can click the little button that you'll see where it says continue with known issues, that red continue even with these known issues, and it'll leave the little warning triangle up at the top, but really it gives you a big blue button that says fix. It tells you what's wrong and allows you to take a moment to go and reinstall the drivers that you need or whatever you need to do to correct the problem so that you avoid a potential crash. So I just wanted to point out why I was so excited about what was seemingly sort of one of those annoying dialog boxes you just ignore and hit return on. I'm not ignoring this anymore. And you can go call this up at any time under Help System Compatibility Report. Another big feature, again, kind of like the speed going up to 20,000%. It's been a little minor annoyance for many of us when we're working with audio in Premiere that in the track mixer, you can only go up to 6 decibels of boost in your gain. So now you can go up to 15, which is even better than 11. So thank you. So this is really great. Thank you, Adobe. And then there's a lot of improvements that are seemingly minor, but actually when I was on the forums, I noticed that a lot of the things they hit were things people have been requesting for a long time. So they really took care of some things. There's now improved performance for multi-channel projects and better support for audio effects routing, and especially if you're working with adaptive tracks. and needing to output through specific channels. And then there's this new thing called loudness radar effect for broadcast, which really allows you to check that your signals in different channels are meeting broadcast standards. So that's something that was added as well and is available in the audio track mixer. You've also got some exporting improvements. So this is great news for me because I work on Mac and PC. How many of you here work on a Mac? And how many on PCs? Okay, fantastic. So half and half about. And for me, working with both means it was really annoying not to be able to export Apple ProRes, MXF out of the Windows systems. You can now export Apple ProRes, OP1A from both Mac and Windows. So I say, yay for that. I was really excited. And then this is really cool. So I put a screenshot up for you guys to see. It's fairly straightforward, but you can now export HDR with the HDR10 metadata, and that ensures that your content's going to look really good on HDR-enabled displays. And to get them to look really good on HDR-enabled displays, you need to go into these video settings when you're exporting and choose some of these settings that I've put here. I've noted it, and I've actually highlighted in yellow at the bottom what you need to do. You're going to add the metadata. You're going to choose whether you want H.264 or HEVC, and then you're going to enable Rec 2020, high dynamic range, and include the HDR10 metadata, right? And then you've got what you need on export for HDR. I don't know how many people are working with HDR, but I know in a little bit we're going to have a really great presentation on that, right? I don't know if it's the next presenter or the following, but that's compatible now in Premiere. And then nod to Canon for letting us have this fantastic event here. I put the Canon support, the newly supported camera formats. I put Canon at the top. So now we can import Canon C4, Canon HF, HEVC. Do you guys all say HVEC like a lot of people? We can import Canon EOS, the C500 Mark II footage, and then of course they added import support for the Sony Venice with the high frame rate. And this one was on the forums, the After Effects forums forever. They wanted to be, at one point we lost support for the QuickTime the animation files that come with Delta frames. And for animators in After Effects, this was a big deal. And they were requesting it. That's resupported, it's newly supported again in Premiere. And then AVI motion JPEG files on the Mac. So in Premiere Pro, we have improved performance, really fantastic performance and support right now for fast playback of these formats. And if you're using Apple ProRes HDR, it's playing 10 times faster. You're going to be able to work with it 10 times the speed that you were dealing with before. Just fabulous. It's really fantastic. And some additional enhancements that a lot of people don't talk about, but I just kind of wanted to complete this and let you know. For some of us, this is fantastic. For me, I'm one of them. I'm one of those editors who uses the freeform, and I use icon view a lot. I started in Avid many years ago, and I was used to looking at my footage in icon mode. And it's really amazing now that the clip thumbnails in the media browser, when you're working that way, are pre-cached. And when you're in the media browser looking at the thumbnails, it's so much faster to scroll through and see what you're working with and bring in what you need. That really works for me. I'm visual. You can free up disk space directly now in the Preferences panel. You can go into Preferences, Media Cache, and delete those files instantly. And then in the project settings, it's now going to auto default to Metal GPU for a Mac as your renderer. So when you're on like my new Mac, I discovered, oh wow, it's already set that up and chosen Metal GPU for me. And graphics enhancements, last but not least. I'm doing a lot of creation of motion graphics templates right now, but some of this affects the people in After Effects who are creating motion graphics templates for Premiere editors. A couple of those things that are neat now is that if I'm making a motion graphics template in After Effects, I now can include for the Premiere editor multi-line text fields, so that previously, you'd open it in Premiere and you could alter one line of text. Now you've got multi-lines that they can update. And then when you create in After Effects a motion graphics template, it now includes drop-down menus that gives the editor different options for what they can do. So it's like I was trying to figure out, wait, how does this work? This is really neat. And that means you can set it up so that you're, instead of just you are locked into this one thing, here you have some options to switch between this style of graphic or this style of graphic. So you can set up that motion graphic template and control it, but give your editors a lot more flexibility in terms of what they can choose for design options. And then this is small but big at the same time. If you're someone who creates shape layers, and I do this in Premiere in the Essential Graphics panel, you can actually rename the darn shape layer now, so that if you're creating multiple shapes, you're not confused which one you're working on. You can rename it and select them. So this was not like last April, where there were a ridiculous amount of amazing, huge improvements. This was more some really nice new big features, a few of them, and then a lot of under the hood improvements for camera support and improved speed in handling different codecs and formats. I'm going to exit out of here now and head over to Premiere. So this is what I wanted to show you really quickly, is one of the big new features was the auto reframe. Now it's not just that we're delivering for theatrical or broadcast, we're delivering all over the web, and social media is a big part of this. So I've got a couple of clips here. I'm going to play through these so that you can see that there is a subject in the frame moving through the frame, and I'm going to apply auto reframe to this sequence, not to the individual clips, to the sequence, and allow it to choose the action and set up the framing for me. So that's what it looks like before I auto reframe. Now, one thing that was tricky for me to get used to is that you're not applying this to the clips. You're actually going over and applying this to the sequence. So I am going to right click on the sequence and choose to auto reframe the sequence. And when I do that, I get some options, and I'll go ahead and choose an aspect ratio of 9:16. And then I have some important options here, because if I want to, because this is going to do the whole sequence, they give you the option of nesting or not nesting the clips. And I tend to switch this from the default, which is don't nest the clips. It will replace your current motion adjustments. I tend to switch it to nest clips. This will keep motion adjustments but remove transitions. For me, this works because I tend to get a lot of 4K footage that I've already scaled to 1080, and I've made the selection of the content based on what I want. In other words, I already have different types of motion adjustments. So for me, this protects those, and it nests the clips. I also like that by nesting the clips, they instantly turn into the color of a nest. So I'm really conscious of the fact that this has been reframed. That doesn't mean that's the option for you. You need to play with these and see how it functions before you make that decision based on the project you're working on. So I'll press create, and this says analyzing, and this is fast because I have 2 small clips in this sequence. It's not a massive sequence, but it also is really fast, like I said, if you have the right hardware, if you got the right GPU. So I will zoom back out so you can see now when I play through, this has been reframed, and it does the tracking for me. So as the subject moves, the motion keyframes stay with that subject, the rider and his horses. And notice that it picked out the key motion on that rider and horses, even though before I reframed it, there's another set of riders and horses behind them. But it's done an amazing job of keying in on what's the primary action, and it just does it for me. So for me, that was the new wow feature in Premiere. I really was happy about that. And then just to show you really quickly the option of, obviously, this is reframe the entire sequence. So before I move on, I'll just point out, you won't have the option if you go into your media clips and you try to auto reframe a clip. You can't do that. You got to put it in a sequence. You can nest it, or you can nest any individual clip in the sequence and send that nest. But I just want to point out, once it creates this reframed sequence, do you see how it automatically created a folder, a bin for me called auto reframed sequences, and it put that in its own bin and marked it for me that it had been reframed to 9:16. I didn't create that bin, it did it for me, and so it creates the nested sequence organization process for you, since it's creating a nested sequence. And then you notice, see how the clips turned pink. So I like that option. Anyway, I wanted to point that out before I move on to speed changes, and just to show you that by control clicking and choosing speed duration, just to prove it to you, we can now go up to 20,000. Now, this is not a super long clip, so it's going to turn it into a single frame. So I wouldn't really use it in this scenario, but just so that you see that, that feature now exists and would allow you to speed very super long clips in a great, fantastic way. Let's see. Oh, under the help menu, this is what I was talking about. You can go get the system compatibility report at any time. And because I didn't ignore it, I get this wonderful blank dialog box, and it only says no conflicts to report. That's what you want to see. So I'm not in danger of crashing. And then a couple other things. Oh yeah, so I've got this audio here, and you have the ability now, you've always had the ability to select the clip and apply gain to the clip. But I'm talking about when you're doing your finishing audio work. I'll go to the audio workspace, so it opens up the sequence track mixer. Oh, here it is. See, 15 decibels volume. You can go up to 15 dB now. So on the master tracks, you now have that ability. Whereas, do you remember how it used to say +6? Wasn't that silly? I thought that was silly, but this is awesome. Like I said, it's better than 11. Okay.
Thank you very much, Christine.